This podcast is part of the Everyday Heroes Podcast Network, the network for first responders and those who support them.
God rest ye merry gentlemen. That's what I think of. Yeah, you never heard that? Because that's what I think of when I think of Victorian times. Little people in the little carol goes, God rest ye merry gentlemen. I don't remember the rest of the words.
Yeah. Okay.
I know the Bare Naked Ladies sang at some point.
What?
Yeah, they did a remake of it with Sarah McLachlan.
Oh, God.
Yeah. I'm Nicole.
I'm Lara.
Scissors and Scrubs.
Hey.
We're going back to Victorian times.
For Christmas.
For our Christmas episode.
Mm-hmm.
Holiday episode.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really going to get into any more than that. All right. It's the season.
Yes.
Okay. So we went for Victorian times because we covered them at Halloween and they're just something. The Victorians were just something.
They really were.
I can honestly say, as much as I love the homes and everything, I don't think I ever wanted to live in that time. It
Filthy.
was weird.
Dirty.
Superstitious.
Wicked.
Nutty.
Yeah.
And dangerous.
Yeah. Everybody died at like 30.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, one of the reasons they died is because arsenic was in everything.
Oh.
Yeah.
Like the poison.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It was in everything.
Oh.
So we're going to cover a little arsenic poisoning.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to get into Charles Dickens and some characters of Charles Dickens and some Victorian shite.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to start with arsenic.
Mm-hmm.
What exactly is arsenic? Let's
know.
start with what it is.
Okay.
You need to know what it is to know why it's a problem. Okay, it's a metalloid element that can be mixed with organic or inorganic substances.
Okay.
Again, we start getting chemical with all this crap.
Mm-hmm.
It is very toxic to most biological substances, including humans,
Okay.
which is why it is a pesticide.
Mm-hmm.
It has been used as a medicinal agent, as a pigment in colors,
Oh.
as a pesticide.
What color?
Oh, we'll get into it.
Oh, okay.
And as a murder weapon of choice
Mhm.
by usually.
That's always in a spy movie.
Oh yeah, arsenic.
Mhm.
It's mainly it's a female murder weapon.
Okay.
Up until 2003, it was used as a prevention of bug infestation in wood. In the past,
Until 2003?
Uh-huh.
Wow.
yeah, your wood was laced with arsenic.
Huh.
In the past, it was used to treat typhosiniasis, which was a sleeping sickness, and syphilis. Again, we threw everything at syphilis trying to cure that bad boy. It is often mixed with copper or lead to strengthen the alloys in it.
Oh, good lead, too. That's
Or to strengthen the alloys in the materials it's mixed with.
Mm-hmm.
It can be found in groundwater, shellfish, and seafood. Any food could be contaminated with arsenic if it has contaminated water it's feeding from, or because somebody put it in there.
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So you can be exposed to it by inhaling it, consuming it, or skin contact.
Oh.
Symptoms of arsenic poisoning: vomiting,
Ugh.
abdominal pain, diarrhea, dark urine known as black water urine,
Ew.
cardiac problems,
Mm-hmm.
hemolysis, which is the destruction of your red blood cells,
Mm-hmm.
vertigo, which I think is a classic sign of arsenic poisoning, is vertigo,
Really?
delirium, shock, and death.
Mm-hmm.
Long-term exposure to low levels can lead to skin changes, which will get dark or discolored. You can get redness, swelling, skin bumps that resemble warts. Laura's got arsenic
Do I have
poisoning.
arsenic
I think you do, because she's got red swelling on her neck.
Oh, my God.
You get
Mike's
hyper.
trying to kill me. I'm putting it out there
What's
now.
in that water? Did I just eat the same thing you did?
Yes, I got the same sauce.
Hyperkeratosis, which cause skin bumps that resemble corns or warts.
Ew.
We should cover corns too. That's a weird little thing. Mies lines, like bees' knees, mies lines, which are white lines on your fingernails. Another classic sign of arsenic poisoning. And long-term exposure can lead to cancer. Treatment for arsenic poisoning: hemodialysis to remove the blood, the poisons from your bloodstream, but that has to be like immediate. Otherwise, it's already bound to your tissues, and it's not going to do anything.
Okay.
Blood transfusions, chelation therapy, which you use drugs that bind specifically to inactive substances, which would be arsenic, and you'll try to remove it.
Mm-hmm.
If you survive it, you usually suffer from you will usually suffer from nerve, cardiac, liver, renal, or skin problems.
Ugh.
That comes from medicine.net.com. Okay, why are we talking arsenic?
Why
in
are we talking
Victorian?
about arsenic?
Okay, in Victorian times, arsenic is used as a fungicide by farmers. It was treating in sheep's wool. Glass makers used it. Shot makers used it. Not shots like, hey, shot, 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 shot. It was shots like shot put, like shot buckshot.
Yeah.
It would make the shot round. That's how toxic this shit is. It would shape it right down.
Wow.
It was used as a food coloring in what they called Scheele's green dye. In the early part of the 1800s, there was a vibrant green color that emerged known as Scheele's green.
Okay.
It was used in everything: wallpaper, paints, candles, clothes, children's toys.
Oh, of course.
The makers of Scheele's green were deliberately loading it with arsenic, copper arsenic to be precise, because copper arsenic enhanced certain pigments and prevented the dyes from fading.
Oh.
So it kept the green very vibrant, which is why wallpaper manufacturers loved Scheele's green. So all of the wallpaper was made with Scheele's green. They promoted that as long as you didn't eat the wallpaper, you would be fine. It was safe. And Victorians were huge into keeping up with the Joneses. So if Laura has green wallpaper in her dining room, well, I'm going to have fucking green wallpaper in my dining room.
And my living room.
And my living room. And I'm gonna wear it as well.
Right.
Okay, so sales of wallpaper went from 1 million in the 1830s to about 23 million by 1860. And almost all of them had Scheele's green paint in them.
Wow.
As the demand of wallpaper grew, so did the reports of homeowners suffering slow, agonizing deaths. So what
I think looking at the green, reviving green walls
in all of
would
my
do
rooms.
it.
So what people don't know is when arsenic gets wet or moist, as we like to say, it releases a toxic gas.
Oh.
So homes in England are what?
Wet.
Damp and
Very
wet and moist, because it's a
Mhm.
damp, wet, moist environment, especially in London.
Mm-hmm.
Heat also causes the paper to create toxic gas. So how do you heat your damp,
With
wet
the fireplace?
house? With a fireplace full of coal and gas lighting,
Nice.
which heats up the wallpaper.
Yes.
So, the Victorian homes were basically becoming gas chambers.
Nice.
Women were wearing ball gowns that contained enough arsenic to kill 200 people.
Oh my God.
So one ball gown, take a good lick of it, you could kill the whole ball. In 1848, one man died and several others got seriously ill after eating a blanche with Scheele's green food coloring.
Oh my
Scheele's
God.
green food, excuse me. All right, so there was a letter published in an Edinburgh paper that apparently I have lost. But it basically it was an anonymous letter from a homeowner who describes that he would sit in his living room at night and his eyes would burn. He would have trouble breathing. He was getting confused. Everybody in the house would be having this problem.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, he had this beautiful paper that was green with gold flecks. Like he goes into description about this stupid wallpaper. And that once they removed themselves from the room, all the symptoms would disappear. So when you read like romance novels and stuff, people would leave England to go get the better air in the country and this and that. It's because most of the homes in the country were not papered with fucking Scheele's green paper. So a Dr. Macadam, he starts to have public concerns about arsenic on the wallpaper. And and this letter prompted it. It was all part of this. The Edinburgh paper was going back and forth between this doctor, manufacturers of the wallpaper. It was a debate back and forth about how bad this stuff was. Mm-hmm. So Macadam is like that if you just dust or touch the wallpaper, the arsenic is in the air. Like it's not just
It's like asbestos.
It's like
if you
asbestos.
touch it,
Because it's not adhered to the wallpaper. It's painted on, so it's flecking off. It's aerosolizing into the air. So he debunks the myth that you need to actually eat the wallpaper to get sick. He's like, no matter what you do, this wallpaper is going to make you sick. He states other countries have already banned the use of it, and Scotland needed to follow suit. So there's a public debate between him and the wallpaper manufacturers, and within 2 years of the first debate, non-arsenic wallpaper starts to hit the shelves. Yeah. Most arsenic poisoning in the 1800s, they were hard to diagnose because the nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, and cramps are the same symptoms as cholera. This is why it becomes the murder weapon of choice at the time. Mm-hmm. In 1840, there's this huge case of a Madame Lafarge. She's accused of poisoning like 1 million people with arsenic. Oh. Charles Dickens uses the word Lafarge as a verb in the Household Wars to describe someone having been done away with by poison. Oh. And like I said, it was the murder choice for women. There's countless. There's a whole article I had on the panic, arsenic panic, because everybody was offing their husbands and people they didn't like with arsenic.
Yeah.
So I got that information from history.com, UK, and we're taking it over to you.
Oh,
Laura.
okay. Well, I did Charles Dickens' medical history.
I didn't know he had one.
Oh, that's all he had. I don't know how he did anything else other than complain. Because it's ridiculous.
I didn't know he was a sickly man.
Oh my God. Either that or he was just a bitcher. Like, he just bitched about everything.
Hypochondriac.
I got it. I read this article. Bleak Health, Charles Dickens' Medical History Revisited. It's from September 2008 in the Dickinson publication, volume 114, summer 2018. Pages 117 through 133 by Nicholas Cambridge from the University of Buckingham. Project was Charles Dickens in the medical world. So he was
known in the medical world.
So this is like a paper someone wrote for school. So Nicholas Cambridge used some of the 14,000 letters Dickens wrote to form some diagnoses of his medical history.
14,000?
Yeah.
He liked to write.
Oh yeah, he was a writer.
When did he have time to write books?
The way he described shit is hysterical. And I gleaned a few thoughts about these things too. Firstly, the dude complained a lot. Like, I don't know how he's married. I would have murdered him with arsenic. And second,
here's some wallpaper just for you.
I think he may have been an addict.
Oh,
from what he says in this. But that's what
I wouldn't have known what an addict is. So.
Right. That's what I got from these. But through his letter, it is clear he suffered from many ailments. I go over 9 of them.
9?
Some out. Yeah.
9.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Some of them. Mm-hmm. First, colds. He had a man cold his entire adult life. In his letters from 1832 to 1868, so like 30 years, Dickens complained of having a cold 47 times.
Well, you know what? The weather in England's really conducive to a continent.
Oh, no, wait. So in 1844, he had 5 colds, and in 1851, he had 4. He was a writer, so he used 20 different adjectives to describe these colds. Like deplorable, intolerable, oppressive, hideous, villainous.
A villainous cold.
Yeah. Dreadful, indescribable, and monstrous.
I'm going to go to work and be like, I have a villainous head cold.
On his second visit to America, so he would go on all these tours to read and whatever. On his second visit to America, he had a cold, quote unquote cold. I don't think it was
cold.
For 5 months.
He had sinuses, probably had allergies.
That he named his True American. That's what this 5-month cold was. His True American. He would write about his True American.
This guy's a nut job.
In a letter to his wife, Catherine, in 1835, he complained of a terrible cold. This is, quote, "My cold, I am sorry to say, is very bad indeed this morning, accompanied by a headache and all the unpleasantries which usually follow in its train. If it should be a damp night and the fog should continue, would you advise me to stay at home, take some gruel, try hot water for my feet, and go to bed early?" Dude was writing to her. She's in England. Yeah. He's in America.
So it's going to take 6 months for you to get the answer.
So are you asking if you should stay at home from work because of a cold for 3 months until you get a response? I like literally. So he'll get a response in like a month, and we'll stay tuned to see if he stayed home the whole time.
I got to stay in.
Yeah. To treat his terrible colds, he used mustard poultices on his chest and neck. He did foot baths, camphor liniments to the back, which is like a vapor rub.
Yeah, Vicks vapor rub.
Yep. And he drank barley water, which sounds disgusting.
Yeah, it does. I think they still have barley water, so I think
I don't know why that just sounds. I've never had it. Sounds like a nightmare.
Sounds like water with barley.
Anyways, man had a cold.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? He writes to his wife about his cold. Like, are you serious? Don't write to me about your cold.
He's a real romantic.
Yeah. He's a writer, and he's writing about a cold. Oh God, I forgot. I have to say this. Number 2 was Tic Doloro. Tic Doloro. Dickens had at least 10 episodes of, I'm not saying this right, Tic Doloro, or trigeminal neuralgia, which is the inflammation of the 5th cranial nerve, which causes severe facial pain.
Oh.
So you get like, the nerve is inflamed and it causes wicked pain like right through your face. When he was 20, he had an episode and couldn't go to like this huge theater audition he was invited to, like in front of this huge director back then, and like it was so he couldn't go. He described them as insupportable torture. He used poultices in laudanum when he had flare-ups.
Well, that's why he's an addict.
Laudanum is an alcoholic solution containing morphine made from opium and used as a painkiller. But he had like many episodes of this trigeminal neuralgia, that sounds awful. Third thing he had, OCD.
Oh, that's not a shock right there.
He was ritualistic in his routines and obsessive about his work. He inspected his kids' rooms, and then he would leave them notes when he was not happy with their cleanliness or organization.
Can you imagine your dad's Charles Dickens and he's leaving you notes?
I know.
This is an entirely insufferable, villainous room.
He rearranged the furniture to a certain specification wherever he stayed. So whatever hotel room
He's feng shui in the room.
Yeah, he had to change everything around. He wrote of this... his love of order in 1840 when he was writing to his wife, Poor Catherine.
She's probably like, just send him on any tour he wants to go on. I can't
She didn't open any of these letters. Yeah. She's like, he's just going to complain about a cold again.
It's another cold letter.
Yeah. Oh, I'm done. Yeah. He's still in America? Not opening it.
His true American friends here.
Of course, I arranged both the room and my luggage before going to bed and had everything very tidy. This is what he's writing to his wife.
He's a party goer, huh?
Yeah. So he was very... fastidious and like everything he did, so they think he might have had a little OCD. Number 4, he had gonorrhea.
What?
Eek. Dickens separated from his wife in 1858.
Slut.
In 1859,
he had gonorrhea.
He wrote to his doctor, quote, "My bachelor state has engendered a small malady on which I want to see you." So his pee-pee had a rash.
His pee-pee is need to see him.
Yeah. He also asked if the medicine the doctor prescribed could have given him a rash. Nope, that's the gonorrhea. Gonorrhea was treated with silver nitrate, which you went over, and which can give a rash.
Yeah.
Or it could have just been
his pee-pee gray.
Yeah. Or it could have just been the gonorrhea itself, which can give a terrible rash.
Who would sleep with him?
I don't know.
He was a modern day just rock star. Ooh, Dickens is in town. Give me some of that. He's single.
Yeah. Dickens' father also probably had the gonorrhea.
Oh, I'm sure.
He died after his urethra ruptured from an old stricture.
That's disgusting.
Untreated gonorrhea was a major cause of urethral strictures before antibiotics came out.
I believe that. Yeah, I believe that.
Dickens wrote a letter the day his father died that said, he had kept his real malady so profoundly secret that when he did disclose it, his state was most alarmingly advanced towards this sad end. So he didn't tell anybody he had gonorrhea, and then till it was like too far gone, and then he died. So he had the gonorrhea. Number 5, he had chronic carbon monoxide poisoning.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Dickens toured America twice, from January to May in 1842 and November 1867 till April 1868. He traveled all over in trains. He wrote about this all the time.
Ad nauseum.
The carriages then weren't ventilated, and it's cold. He's there in the winter. It's cold. And they're heated with charcoal stoves. We now know that these stoves produce carbon monoxide, and none of the windows were open, and they're sitting in cars with 100 people in them with the coal stoves going. So low concentrations of carbon monoxide cause dizziness, fatigue, weakness, headaches, disorientation, drowsiness, nausea and vomiting, stomach aches, chest pain, wheeziness, and palpitations. During his second visit to America, he had that true American.
Which is actually probably carbon monoxide poisoning.
He writes letters not only complaining about the true American cold, but he can't get out of bed till late afternoon. He's wicked lethargic. He has terrible headaches. He has poor sleep, poor appetite, hair loss.
Oh, wow.
And then he had a 5-month cold, which is ridiculous because no colds last 5 months. And he gets on a ship to go back to England after his tour, and 4 days later, every symptom's gone.
Oh,
and he's out in that ocean
again.
Yeah. In a letter home regarding his 5-month cold, probable carbon monoxide poisoning, he says, "I cannot eat and have established this system." This is why I think he's an addict. At 7 a.m, in bed, a tumbler of new cream and 2 tablespoons of rum.
None.
At 12, a sherry cobbler and a biscuit. At 3, a pint of champagne. At 5 minutes to 8, an egg beaten up with a glass of sherry.
So he's a drunk.
Yeah, he takes laudanum for like everything he has. So that's why I think he's doing that to cure his true American and his carbon monoxide. I think he's an addict. Number 6, he had renal colic.
Which is?
It's
Part of the
I'll get
gonorrhea?
into it. No. So since he was a kid, he suffered from wicked spasm that caused really bad extreme pain in his left side. They believe they were from renal colic, which happens when a kidney stone gets lodged in your ureter and it starts like stretching on the ureter and it kills and it causes a spasm. He described 12 episodes between 1834 and 1867. He describes these episodes as rheumatism in my back or exquisite torture from the spasm in my side and, quote, the ecstasy of pain.
The ecstasy of pain.
To treat his renal colic, he took laudanum.
Sherry cobblers. Pint of champagne.
Hydrocyanic acid, which is extremely poisonous.
Yeah, like it's cyanide.
Yeah. And henbane, which is an herbal medicine used for rheumatism. It's an analgesic, a sedative, and a narcotic.
Oh, he's bad.
It contains that henbane, or however you say that. It contains scopolamine.
Oh my God.
It's like an herbal thing that contains scopolamine, which relaxes the muscles living in the digestive tract. So it probably did help a little bit with the ureter. But he's, all doped up. He had PTSD and depression. In 1865, Dickens was in the Stopplehurst Railway derailment. So the train he was on derailed. Mm-hmm. He tried to provide aid to people, but some of them died while he was helping them.
Yeah.
The day after, he asked his doctor for a sedative. Like, he was really upset by it. He lost his voice for 2 weeks after. He could not speak.
Wow.
And he wrote that he was unfit for noise or worry. Afterwards, he avoided using trains when he could. This was later on in his life, so he didn't have to do these big tours. Right. He wrote several times to his daughter and friends about not participating in outings and going away because of being depressed. Like, I'm not getting out of bed, blah, blah, blah. And he would miss things because he couldn't get out of bed some days. And he would, to treat it, he would go on long walks. Like, that's what they did for depression. Like, there was no treatment for any of this stuff, but he definitely sounds like he had PTSD. He also had anal fistulas and hemorrhoids.
He was a looker, huh? Red in the face from the carbon dioxide, gonorrhea, anal fistulas, hemorrhoids. Oh, he's a piece of work.
He suffered with anal fistulas so bad that in 1841, he had an operation on the fistula in his home with no anesthesia.
Oh.
So a fistula is like a little tunnel, like a little tract.
Yes,
right?
But why was he getting them?
I don't know. After that, he always sat in a cane chair, even when traveling.
Ouch.
He would only sit in a cane chair. He had 3 episodes of rectal bleeding because of piles or hemorrhoids. Yeah. The first time he wrote his doctor and said, quote, I have some slight inconvenience, but not much, from piles, unquote. He asked what, if anything, he should do and said he would treat himself with regularity of bowel, cold baths, and good regular living.
Cold bath?
Soaked his bum in cold water. 2 years later, he wrote his doctor, quote, I have an occasional return of that effusion of blood from piles, end quote. And a couple months before his death, he wrote, my uneasiness and hemorrhage, after having quite left me, as I supposed, has come back with an aggravated irritability that it has not yet displayed. So he was bleeding profusely now from his hemorrhoids.
That he has not yet seen before.
Yeah. He thought they left, and now he's bleeding to death from them. So he had pretty severe hemorrhoids and some anal fistulas.
I listened to him, and then we were down in the cemeteries in Georgia, and we went to this one guy in this, like, his whole life story. And he was in war. He was stabbed. He was shot. Comes back. He's beaten. Comes back. Then he's been stabbed like 15 times. Comes back from all that. Then charges off into war again, where he finally was fatally wounded. But he took out 3 guys. And I'm like, and this guy's bitching about his hemorrhoids.
Yeah, hemorrhoids and colds.
Are you kidding me?
The last thing I went over that he had, because he had more, but I was like, oh,
you were tired of it.
Yeah.
You were done with Charles Dickens.
Were strokes.
Oh.
In 1853, Dickens suffered from a TIA, which is a transient ischemic attack, which is a really
stroke.
small stroke. He was, quote, doctored and put to bed for the day, end quote.
Okay.
So that's why they said it was a stroke, but they think it was they didn't know back then. It was probably like a little TIA because he was unwell for a day, but then much better the next day. In 1866, he noted his pulse was irregular. He saw a doctor that treated him with iron, quinine, and digitalis. Oh. So he probably had like AFib.
Yeah.
And that's what's causing clots, causing strokes. Then in 1869, he suffered another TIA, and it affected the left side of his body. Doctors wanted him to stop touring, stop doing the readings. It's causing you too much stress. But he wouldn't. Mm-hmm. So the doctor would go to all of his appearances to monitor him.
Oh, wow.
And they would check his pulse before and after and make sure, okay, fine, you can do the next one. They were that concerned. And on June 8th, 1870, Dickens suffered a severe stroke and died the next day.
So in 1870.
That is how he died.
I wonder how old he was. Did it say how old he was when he died?
No, I didn't really look it up, though.
Well, I have to tell you, A Christmas Carol is probably my favorite Christmas story ever. I could
it's just a good one.
I love it. Yeah. I could watch it in any version, almost.
I used to love the Mickey Mouse one.
I love the Mickey Mouse one. I like the Albert Finney one. I just love the story. Yeah. I don't think I can watch the cartoon Jim Carrey one. That one kind of doesn't do it for me. It's too much. But I love the story. I love the Victorian time. I love the story. So.
And who doesn't love little Tiny Tim?
Little fucking Tiny Tim. Little pathetic,
so pathetic.
White, waif-like, half a cripple. God bless us, everyone. Tiny Tim.
Oh, Tiny Tim.
What was wrong with Tiny Tim?
What was wrong with Tiny Tim?
What was wrong?
He had that little crutch.
In 1843, when Dickens wrote his little novella, A Christmas Carol, Dickens never says in the book what is wrong with Tiny Tim. So many people speculate what is wrong with Tiny Tim. It has been speculated from polio to cerebral palsy to what they really think he has is the fact that he is in leg braces and he's deathly white, and that he would be cured with Ebenezer's money, is that he must have had a combination of rickets and TB.
Oh,
so
a combo.
A combo. That's deathly little white face. There's one of the, who's in it? I can't think of who is Scrooge in it, but the kid who plays Tiny Tim, he's got these teeth. He looks like a ghost. He's so white. I don't know how they got this kid to look that bad. And he's got these circles in his eyes and these fucked up teeth. I'm like, where did they find this kid?
You're an actor.
He's terrible. All right, so rickets. Rickets is a softening and weakening of bones in small children due to a lack of vitamin D. I have an older cousin who was adopted. So he's probably in his late 60s now. So when he was 2 in the orphanage, he had rickets. That's how bad things were in the orphanage. Yeah. Vitamin D, which we need, it's the vitamin that needs sunlight to kind of help your skin will create vitamin D in the sunlight. We need it to absorb calcium and phosphorus from food, making our bones strong. So, symptoms of rickets: delayed growth, delayed motor skills, pain in the spine, pelvis, and legs, muscle weakness, bowed legs or knocked knees, thickened wrists and ankles, and a breastbone projection. Excuse me. Causes: lack of vitamin D, lack of sunlight that skin produces. Lack of sunlight. Skin produces vitamin D when exposed to sunlight. Less time outdoors means rickets. Your food: you have no access to food with vitamin D's, such as fish oil, mackerel, fatty fish. Today, we fortify our milk with vitamin D, and we fortify certain cereals and fruit juices with vitamin D. You may have a lack of vitamin D because you have a problem with absorption, like a celiac disease, inflammation, bowel,
IBS,
IBD, which I think is inflammatory bowel disease. I wrote it down this way. Don't ask me why I did that, but I did that. Cystic fibrosis or kidney problems. Risk factors. People with dark skin have a risk factor for it because the more melanin you have, it lowers your ability to produce vitamin D, believe it or not. Mothers who have a vitamin D deficiency during pregnancy. Northern latitudes where there is less sunshine.
England?
Like England.
Mm-hmm.
Preemies, medications. Babies that are exclusively breastfed can have a vitamin D deficiency because breast milk does not carry enough vitamin D to keep you going. So these kids need to have vitamin D supplements. If it is untreated, it can lead to a failure to grow, an abnormally curved spine, bone deformities, and dental defects. Prevention.
Mm-hmm.
Exposure to sunlight, 10 to 15 minutes near midday.
Mm-hmm.
Eat vitamin D rich foods. Take vitamin D if you have no access to sunlight or vitamin D rich foods. That's all from mayoclinic.com.
Yes.
Boom. When you have a lack of vitamin D, it contributes to a lower immune system, which now invites in TB.
Yes.
I am not going to cover tuberculosis to the extent tuberculosis can be covered because we just don't have the time for this particular episode, but I will cover TB just a little bit, just a little taste of it. Just got a little taste of it. Yeah. All right. In Dickens' time, TB was rampant, and it was known as the White Plague, which is why Tiny Tim looks like a goddamn ghost, because of how deathly pale you become when you have TB. It is a contagious infection that usually attacks your lungs. It can spread to other parts of the body, but the lungs is where it likes to go. Symptoms are a cough that lasts more than 3 weeks, chest pain, coughing up blood, you're tired all the goddamn time, night sweats, chills, fevers, loss of appetite, and weight loss.
So those night sweats you always got to worry about.
No shit. Night sweats, unless you're menopausal, are never good.
Yeah.
Causes. TB is spread through the air like a cold or flu, and you can only get TB from somebody else who has TB. Like a friend or a coworker, or you travel to a company where the population is known to have high rates of TB. You're in cramped spaces like prisons or jail, or you're a healthcare worker who is exposed to TB. If you have a low immune system, like somebody with HIV or AIDS, diabetes, kidney disease, cancers, low body weight or poor nutrition, or babies and children, you are at higher risk of catching TB. Treatment is medication. That's our extent of covering TB.
Yes.
Okay. So Tiny Tim lives in cramped, polluted London, and he's dirt poor. 60% of children in working class London in this time have rickets because of poor nutrition and lack of sunlight.
60%.
60%. London is heating all of their homes with coal. These homes are, if you've ever been to London, they're packed in, packed in. All that coal blocks out the sunlight. So not only do they not get a lot of sunlight, but now the sun can't get through because the coal, it's like nighttime. There's so much coal in the air. I'm writing this today, I said to my husband, London must have sucked.
I can't even imagine how dirty.
Disease-ridden, dirty,
no sun,
poor. It must have sucked.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys, but seriously, half of the working class in Dickens' time also had signs of TB.
Well, they're all in those workhouses and
living on top of each other. Right. So with Ebenezer's money, Tiny Tim's rickets could have been helped and reversed, and his TB could have been improved because he could have had sunshine. He could have been sent to places to get more sunshine. He would have had a better diet. He could have had cod liver supplements. And he would also have had braces for his legs. All these things which were available in the time of Dickens. Some believe that Dickens based his Tiny Tim on two people. His nephew Henry, who died of TB, and his son's friend, who was disabled. So this comes from Live Science, Tiny Tim's symptoms decoded. So then I went on to discuss a couple of things that came about in Victorian times that we do now, and then the dangers of Victorian Christmases.
Ooh.
Okay. So, in the 1800s, Christmas, in the very beginning, 1700s, 1800s, nobody cared a shit about Christmas. You didn't celebrate it. People worked. It was not a big deal. Gift giving was really a New Year's thing. Nobody really bothered with it. By the end of the Victorian period, it is the biggest celebration of the year. It's believed that they're bringing in industry, you're bringing in technology, you have a better infrastructure, now you have trains so people can travel to see family. You're developing a middle class with all this industry, and so people are having some expendable money for gifts and decorations and things like that. In 1843, Henry Cole introduces the first Christmas card. Oh. Fuck you, Henry Cole, because now we got to write goddamn Christmas cards.
80 waiting to be addressed.
He had an artist design a festive scene and printed up 100 cards for his use. After the cards were sold, whatever he had left over, he started selling to the public. And with printing being improved all the time, that eventually these are becoming commonplace. Now you have affordable income again. Printing's quicker, so you can print them cheaper. People are starting to send Christmas cards to everybody. Toys are becoming mass-produced, decorations, novelty items. So the Christmas cracker, which I never fucking understood these things. You know what I'm talking about, the Christmas cracker. It's like, it's wrapped, it's paper, and you twist it, and it pops, and there's candy inside.
Oh, yes, it is.
Right. So in 1840s, a candy shop owner in Paris, Tom Smith, invents the first cracker filled with bonbons. By 1860, he adds a bang, and the cracker, as we know today, is born. I've never opened one of those.
No.
But of course, the biggest reason for Christmas, we have Victorian Albert, who basically shaped the world in the 1800s. They have a huge family. There's 9 kids in Victoria's time. And whatever the royal family did, the rest of London did. So in 1848, there is an illustration in the London News that publishes a drawing of Victorian Albert and their family celebrating around a Christmas tree, which he has brought with him from Germany. Instantly, Christmas trees are popping up fucking everywhere. The first ad for Christmas tree ornaments appears in 1853. And usually ornaments were being paired with goodies and candies, and you'd string popcorn and cranberries and all this shit, and you'd put it on your tree. Okay. So that is going to directly lead into some of the dangers of Victorian Christmases.
My father's mother used to, when we'd go up around Christmas, they'd string popcorn and I mean, we never did that down here.
We never did that either.
We had tinsel and garlands.
We had more shit to put on that tree.
We had garlands.
Yeah. It was like the inside of Jordan Marsh when you
But
went
up there, I was like, this is like the 1800s.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. It's the 1800s. It's ridiculous. Yeah. And, remember we used to make the paper chains in school?
Yes.
I used to think that was so cool. All right. So these I'm going to read directly from, this Christmas tree related incident from 1849 was documented in the Household Narrative, which is an almanac published by Charles Dickens between 1850 and 1855.
Oh, that Charles got his finger in everything.
He really was something. Between him and Victoria.
Yeah.
In this section, tastefully entitled Accident and Disaster, Dickens reports the following incident. Okay, so I'm going to read it verbatim. An accident, fortunately not serious in its results, occurred on the evening of 7th at the residence of W.O. Big. Esquire of Abbot Lee. Yep. We did that Victorian cemetery tour too. It was very posh to have a period after every initial. It meant you were very high ranking. So he is W.O.Big. Esquire. There was a large party at the house, and during the night, a quote German tree unquote about 5 feet high, with its branches covered with bonbons and other Christmas presents, and lit with a number of small wax tapers, was introduced into the drawing room for the younger members of the party. While leaning forward to take some toy from the tree, the light gauze overdress of one young lady, Miss Gordon, took fire and blazed up in an alarming manner.
Oh my God.
One of the lads present, whose quickness and presence of mind were far superior to his ears, with much thought and decision, threw down the young lady and folding her in a rug that was luckily close by, he put the flame out before it had done any serious damage beyond scorching her arms severely. And being Victorian times, because he laid his hands on her, they probably had to marry by the end of the evening. Okay. Using real candles on the Christmas tree was commonplace for many years and the cause of many Christmas disasters.
Yeah, you would think.
So, another incident reported in the London Lancet in 1856. The subject of it was a young lady about 24 years of age, in good health at the time, but not strong. Why would you add that? She's beautiful, but she's weak.
Yeah.
Surrounded by every comfort that wealth could bestow, living well, and taking a fair amount of daily exercise. What this has to do with anything?
She's not strong.
No, she's not strong, but she takes her daily exercise. I was first consulted after a large chronic abscess had formed behind the right mamma, which I think is her boob, but not affecting the mamma itself. This was attributed to, and I believe, justly to long-continued exertion of the arms above the head in dressing a Christmas tree. Here's my thought on what happened to this young lady.
She had an abscess in her armpit from putting decorations on the tree?
But she was probably wearing some god-awful corset or tool or some shit that was rubbing every time she moved her arm up to put a fucking candle on the tree, and she got an abscess. It wasn't because she was weak or anything else. I just love how that all had to be described in there. She was weak. All right. And then the young woman sought medical assistance, and the surgeon, Samuel Solly, operated. The abscess was opened, pressure was applied, and a careful tonic plan of constitutional treatment adopted.
Oh.
I have to read it because you just can't say it any other way. She had a change of air, Laura, because that green wallpaper was doing her in as well.
The arsenic is probably killing that boy.
So she had a change of air, carriage exercise, etc. But still the sinus would not heal. With the assistance of my friend, Mr. Martin of Reigate, which in England surgeons were called Mr., I first made an opening at the lower extremity of the sinus. I next dilated the upper mouth of the sinus sufficiently to insert my finger.
Ew.
And then, feeling a small portion of carious sternum at the upper part and at the lower, a similar disease of the third and fourth ribs, I removed the softened bone. What? This poor
He took
fucker.
a rib out.
She gets a little abscess. He's taking out ribs. I removed the softened bone in both places with the gouge, and from this time the case went on well, and the sinus rapidly healed. My only source of regret the treatment of this case was that I had not adopted this plan earlier. But one naturally shrinks from a formidable operation on a delicate, sensitive female.
Oh my
even
God.
with the assistance of chloroform. She's fucking knocked out. She doesn't know what the hell you're doing over there. And he's like, all right, I'm going to take out half your rib cage because what the hell? You're asleep.
Took her ribs out.
Wow.
From decorating a Christmas tree.
From decorating Christmas tree.
That is
That's why we shouldn't do corsets. All right, so in 1858, we have a case in the Medical Times and Gazette. An 11-year-old boy is admitted to King's College Hospital and he is in serious distress. From the statement of his friends, it appears that on Christmas Eve in 1858, the boy amused himself by eating a large number of red hollyberries.
Oh.
Soon afterwards, he began to vomit, and severe convulsions came on, which seemed to exhaust him very much. Yes, as I imagined they would. Indeed, their violence was so great, and the consequent exhaustion was so alarming, that on Christmas Day his friends believed he would certainly die. Once, he lay so still that he appeared not to breathe, and on holding a mirror before his mouth, there was no evidence of breath. He was given large amounts of wine to the patient believed to have poisoned. Oh, wait a minute, I missed something here. They gave him large amounts of wine, which then revived him. Okay? Though it is believed that that you do not give large portions of wine to a patient who has been poisoned.
Yeah. Especially a child.
Yes.
Yeah.
He winds up recovering and is fine. So then, if the Christmas decorations didn't kill you, maybe the dinner might. So, in the Medical Times and Gazette reported the inquest death of a Mr. Marshall George Harrison in 1871.
George Harrison?
No, related to the Beatles. Okay, you tell me what you think this is, Laura, because you're going to know immediately.
Go ahead.
The deceased was taken ill on December 29th last. It was supposed in consequence of something of a poisonous nature in the turkey of which he partook on Christmas Day. Mrs. Harrison's 2 daughters, a son, and a friend were also seized with vomiting, but all recovered with the exception of the deceased, who died on January 4th. The viscera of the deceased and portions of the turkey, sauce, catsup, and some water were sent to Mr. Rogers, London Hospital, for analysis. In his report, the result of the examination to the coroner, he says, after a very careful analysis, no mineral or irritant poisons were discovered. Laura, what do you think it was?
Food poisoning.
What kind? He had turkey.
What's it called?
Salmonella. Salmonella.
He died within 4 days? Wow.
He had a severe case of salmonella.
It's a lot of vomiting.
A lot of vomiting. And in 1871, we have another one. In his experience, let's see, Mr. Harrison without poison, Mr. Rogers declared himself... Okay, so I find it interesting that in 1871, there seems to have been no notion of food poisoning caused by pathogen, which we're pretty sure it was salmonella, which very probably killed the unfortunate Mr. Harrison. Having ruled out deliberate poisoning, Mr. Rogers declared himself perplexed. He's not poisoned. I'm very perplexed. In his experience, he had met with a case equally singular, where a person had died after partaking of goose. And the symptoms in that case were identical, right out of my cousin Vinny, identical with those observed in the present instance. He could come to no other conclusion than that the turkey was poisonous in its nature, like the goose referred to, and that the death of Mr. Harrison was attributed to no other cause. Verdict, Death from natural causes. I object, Your Honor. Death from salmonella poisoning.
From natural causes.
Yep. Because you got to imagine they didn't know how to cook a turkey properly,
Oh,
and
God.
they probably stuffed the shit out of it and stuck it in an all-day oven at like 20 degrees.
And it probably sat on the
all day.
counter before.
Yeah, you know, if it wasn't already laced with arsenic from the shit it probably ate in the soil in London. So, you didn't really want to hang out in Victorian times. That's all I'm going to say about that. If the lead paint didn't kill you, or the arsenic wallpaper didn't kill you.
Yeah.
I was reading something because I thought it was arsenic, but tomatoes, people wouldn't eat tomatoes. Why? Because most plates were made of pewter. Tomatoes, being so acidic, leached all the lead out of the pewter, and people got lead poisoning and died from tomatoes, which they thought was tomatoes when it was actually lead from the plates.
Oh.
But I would thought that was part of it. So basically, Victorian times were not a pleasant experience.
Deadly. They
Deadly
just tried
times.
to kill you left and right.
No shit.
Just so they could have those big funerals. Here, take this wallpaper.
I'm getting the morning cloth out. Here's some more turkey.
Gonna put a bow on my
So
door.
when we did that, I was telling Laura we did this tour of the cemetery in Savannah, this big Bonaventure, that's what it was called, cemetery. And it went through all of the tombstones, what they mean, all the Victorian imaging that they had on it, which brought us right back. I was laughing because it's everything you talked about in Halloween.
Yeah.
And a lot of the tombstones are covered in mourning cloth, which you talked about, the black taffety. The woman giving the tour was like, oh, my family still has mourning cloth. I'm like, what? She goes, we still practice the mourning cloth. I said, you still cover your mirrors and your clock? She's like, absolutely. I said, really? She's like, yes. And I didn't even know what to say after that. Yeah. I can't imagine going into somebody's house and all the mirrors
are pictures upside down. Like, why? Why?
Tying it on the door so we could come in quietly.
Right.
Not to, I don't know if they just do it out of sheer tradition, but I can't imagine going into somebody's house in 2021.
I'd be a little creeped out.
And the windows, everything's covered with black cloth, and you're not. I just can't.
I'll just stay outside. I'll visit you in like a month. So.
Yep. So that concludes Scissors and Scrubs for the
holiday season
for the 2021. Now we're going into the new year. We're starting year 4.
That's crazy.
Year 4. So we have cracked 100,000 downloads.
Yeah.
Yay!
That's
I'm gonna pop crackers. Bang, 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 bang.
They fill with chocolates.
They fill with chocolates. So the new year, who knows what that's gonna bring? We're gonna have to come up with a lot of new topics. Yeah. We'll see. I have a few I can think of.
Yeah, write it. We have a girl that helps us. She writes it. She's been writing great ideas.
Yeah, no kidding.
So we have a couple to do with those.
So have a wonderful New Year's. Enjoy your holiday season. Play it safe. Don't do any stupid things.
No,
Make sure you cook your food.
All the way.
We don't want tapeworms or anything.
Get a small tree so you don't have to reach that high and get an abscess.
God. The thought of going to get a tree right now, I just can't.
Mine's right there in that basement.
Well, I told the kids, I said, this is the last year we're doing a real tree. I'm getting too old and too nervous. I mean, now the fire extinguisher's right next to it, which I don't think it's going to make a goddamn bit of difference. It'll be up in 2 seconds. Yeah. I'll burn with it trying to get the fire extinguisher. But I just can't believe another year. Another year is gone.
It's crazy.
It is freaking crazy.
Very fast.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Next year we see both our kids graduate high school.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, wow.
Yeah. We're getting old, man.
We are getting old. Mm-hmm. No, they're getting old. We're not getting old.
That's true.
All right. So enjoy, and we will see you in the new year.
Happy
Bye.
New Year.
Like, subscribe, rate, and review the Scissors and Scrubs podcast on whatever podcast app you listen to us on. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Scissors and Scrubs. And email us any of your stories or thoughts to scissorsandscrubs@gmail.com.